Is killing a zombie murder? Hey y'all, it's Saib here, and I just want to ask the following question. Is killing a zombie murder? And you could say legally no, but I'm gonna be talking about morally, right? So, the way that I was thinking about this is that technically killing a zombie, we normally see that as something normal, right? It's almost like a video game where you don't really consider them as people anymore. But when you think about it, what really got me thinking about this is some of the movies, such as Resident Evil, well, the games franchise as well, but Resident Evil as well as like World War Z, where there's actually a cure for the sort of infection. And if you kill a person and you know that there's a cure for it, or at least a possible cure, isn't that technically murder? Because you're really taking away someone's life when they could possibly turn back into a human. Now, I'm on the side to where, it's almost like self-defense, where if they're coming at you and you really have nothing else, then obviously, it's sort of like self-defense. But I'm not talking about a court case. I'm talking about a sort of moral standard where you know that there's a cure, or at the very least, they're creating a cure, and you're possibly still, let's say that you're not entirely trying to let zombies live, where you're actively hunting zombies. Um, is that morally okay? Because in a way, you're sort of, decreasing the likelihood of someone getting eaten by a zombie. But at the same time, I don't know. But you know what? Now that I think about it, zombies typically they have like their guts and everything sticking out. So I would assume that it depends, right? Because if you're talking about like a Walking Dead zombie, I mean most of them already like, I mean if you somehow found a cure, I think you would die just from egregious injuries, basically, right? Where you would bleed out or something, or maybe you're missing your entire lung, or you have a, I don't know, a hole through your heart. But I'm really talking about like zombies that are sort of almost like Left 4 Dead, or some really Resident Evil or World War Z, where the zombies aren't really decaying necessarily. Like some of them are, maybe they're missing a foot, but in a sense they still have their organs intact. It's just that they've been infected, so now they're not exactly human, right? And this is where the moral issue comes into play, because it's almost like a if you ever heard of Kant or Kant. Anyways, the Kantian sort of philosophy is that it if you do something with goodwill, it doesn't matter the consequence, right? So there's also utilitarianism, which is you're doing something for the benefit of what would benefit the most amount of people, right? So let's say that you take away someone's fishing boat, but you allow for nets to be like everyone can cast nets. So instead of that person having that private property, now everyone can cast nets into the river or whatever. So you're benefiting more people. It's just that you took away that one person's right. That's utilitarianism. Whereas Kantian is more of, hey, I was, trying to help this guy. I was chopping my axe against the tree because he was struggling. And when I hit really hard, the axe head fell on his head and he's no longer with us. Now that is Kantian because you did not intentionally uh, unalive that person, right? It just sort of happened. Where you were actually doing a good act and trying to help them because they were struggling, but it resulted in their demise, right? So this zombie thing, I mean, the difference is that the zombies raised from the dead are already dead, right? So I wouldn't consider that murder necessarily because they were already dead to begin with. And yeah, maybe if they were cured, maybe they could come back alive, but I don't know. That's going into some other territory. But someone infected turning into a zombie, that's more moral. You know what, too? I just thought about it. If you knew that there was a cure or a very high possibility of there being a cure for zombies, and you had an infected, let's say family members, maybe spouse, kids, would you lock up your family, your infected family, for like in the basement just to keep them alive? Uh, that's something that's we see that in games and movies in any type of media with zombies. There's usually some type of person that you run into to where they have their family sort of chained up. Maybe they're mourning their loss. But if you really think about it, that's kind of, I mean, it's not entirely smart and it's kind of morbid, considering that they are a danger to everyone, including yourself. But when you think about it, if you know that there's a cure or a very like a possibility of there being a cure, it is kind of like you're saving their life, you know? You're sort of keeping them away from everyone, but you're allowing them the chance at back at life. So I don't know. That thought just popped into my mind. Let me know if you would do that. But one other thing that I did want to mention too is that when have you ever thought of the fact that the zombie apocalypse is kind of like a permanent purge, like the movie, if you've ever seen it, where the purge is where that all laws are sort of gone and that you no longer have to like everything's allowed basically. It's kind of an anarchy of sorts, right? Whereas zombie apocalypse, I mean, all killings allowed. You can rob stores, right? You always see it in movies, especially apocalyptic ones, where the laws sort of don't apply anymore, and you can take medicine from stores or go to hospitals and steal their stuff. Or there's like no more rules. And sure, there's like rules later on, but like in the beginning stages, it's like the purge basically. Like if you want to kill your neighbor, then that's on the table. And later too, one other thing that's kind of crazy is if you do like have a grudge against someone, you could always say, "Oh, they turned into a zombie. That's why they're not with us." Or, "Oh, you know, they were bitten and infected, so they took themselves out." I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but if you think about it, the purge is a sort of representation of what happens when humans have a sort of higher demand, I guess. I don't know how to put it, but I don't know. I think it's kind of crazy. But in terms of is killing a zombie murder, I think morally yes, if there's a cure and you know about it. I think that especially if you go out actively hunting zombies when you don't really need to. I mean, sure, I don't know. That's kind of tough because if you're sort of patrolling an area and you're just trying to call them, then maybe. But in terms of like in the court, like let's say later on there's a sort of cure and everyone gets cured who is still a zombie. I don't think that you would go to court and lose a court sentence. I mean, you would have to go crazy. I don't even know what going crazy is like in that sort of world. But I really do think that killing a zombie is not necessarily murder, which I'm sure many of you would agree. But I don't know. I think it's interesting to think about, considering that they're still technically human. They're just gone. Uh, another thing too that I was thinking about is the Warm Bodies movie. If you've ever seen that one, it's like a more of a romance take on zombies, where this zombie sort of slowly gains a heartbeat and he falls in love with this human girl. And yeah, it's a whole thing. It's kind of a stupid movie, but that too is kind of a thing. But anyways, thanks y'all. See y'all. Don't kill any zombies if there's a cure. Bye.